Hello, I'm Logic Bunny, and come with me down the rabbit hole of knowledge. Ever find yourself nodding along to something, only to realize later you weren't really paying attention? Maybe you agreed to help a friend move on the hottest day of the year, or perhaps you bought that gadget advertised all over your social media feed, only to discover let's just say it doesn't quite live up to the hype. We all have those moments when our brains seem to be running on autopilot. We're going through the motions, but not really thinking things through. It's like we're sleepwalking through our own lives, reacting instead of responding, believing instead of questioning. Isn't it strange how easily we can accept information without truly considering it? But what if there was a way to take control? What if you could consciously steer your thoughts, avoid those mental potholes, and make smarter, more informed decisions? That's where critical thinking comes in. It's like a mental off switch for autopilot, a way to regain control of your cognitive functions in a world drowning in information. News, opinions, advertisements, cat videos, critical thinking is the superpower that sets you apart. It's the ability to analyze information objectively, to identify biases and assumptions, and to form your own reasoned judgments. It's not about being negative or cynical. It's about being curious, open-minded, and intellectually honest. About asking, is this really true? How do I know? And most importantly, why should I care? Let's explore this together. Our brains are amazing machines, constantly processing information and making decisions. But sometimes, to keep up with the sheer volume of data, they take shortcuts. Think of them as mental cheat codes. Little rules of thumb that help us navigate the world quickly and efficiently. These shortcuts, also known as heuristics, can be incredibly helpful. Imagine having to analyze every single detail before crossing the street. You'd never get anywhere. However, these mental shortcuts can also lead us astray. They can create biases, distort our perceptions, and cause us to make flawed judgments. It's like using a blurry map. You might think you're heading in the right direction, but you could end up completely lost. What if we tried this? One common mental shortcut is the availability heuristic. This is where we overestimate the likelihood of events that are recalled, often because they're dramatic or recent. For example, people often fear flying more than driving, even though statistically, car accidents are far more common. Why? Because plane crashes tend to be big news etched into our memories, while car accidents, though more frequent, often fade into the background. Think back to a time when a major news event dominated the headlines. Perhaps it was a natural disaster, a political scandal, or even a viral outbreak. Remember how the constant media coverage made it seem like the world was on the brink of collapse. In many cases, our perception of the risk was far greater than the actual threat. Oh, because the information was so readily available, we jumped to conclusions, fueled by fear and anxiety, without taking the time to analyze the situation rationally. Now, imagine your brain is a detective trying to solve a mystery. A good detective doesn't just rely on the first clue that pops up. They gather evidence, interview witnesses, and carefully analyze all the information before drawing a conclusion. Your brain should do the same. Instead of jumping to conclusions based on what's most readily available, take a step back. Ask yourself, what other information do I need? What are the possible explanations? Am I being influenced by my emotions? And speaking of too much information, consider the environmental factor that sabotages your critical thinking. Information overload. The sheer volume of news, opinions, and data we're exposed to every day can be overwhelming. It's like trying to drink from When our brains become overloaded, we tend to default to simple, often incorrect judgments. We latch on to the first explanation that makes sense, even if it's not the most accurate. We need to learn to filter information effectively, to identify reliable sources, and to avoid getting bogged down in the noise. The possibilities are endless. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to find information that supports what you already believe? It's like the internet is reading your mind, serving up articles, videos, and social media posts that perfectly align with your existing opinions. This isn't magic, though. It's confirmation bias at work. That's a great question. Confirmation Bias is our tendency to seek out and interpret information in a way that confirms our existing beliefs. We all do it, whether we realize it or not. It's like having an echo chamber in your head, constantly reinforcing what you already think is true. But what happens when those beliefs are wrong? Sometimes confirmation bias looks a lot like curiosity. We think we're exploring new ideas, but really, we're just cherry-picking information that makes us feel good, that validates our preconceived notions. It's accepting information without critical evaluation, and that can be dangerous. It prevents us from seeing the bigger picture, from understanding different perspectives, and from growing intellectually. Imagine two people getting their news. On one side, there's someone who only watches news channels that align with their political views. They're constantly hearing opinions that reinforce their own, creating a comfortable but ultimately limiting echo chamber. On the other side, there's someone who actively seeks out diverse perspectives, reading articles from different sources, and engaging in conversations with people who hold opposing viewpoints. Who do you think has a more nuanced and accurate understanding of the world? So, how do we escape this echo chamber? Here's a 3-step technique rooted in scientific literature, historical records, academic research, technological advancements, cultural studies to help you discern truth from misinformation. First, identify your initial belief. What do you think is true about a particular issue? Second, actively seek out opposing viewpoints. Read articles, watch videos, and talk to people who disagree with you. This can be uncomfortable, but it's essential for breaking free from confirmation bias. Third, honestly evaluate the evidence for both sides. Don't just dismiss opposing viewpoints out of hand. Consider the evidence carefully and be willing to change your mind if the evidence warrants it. Think of your beliefs as a house. Confirmation bias is like only adding rooms that match the existing style. You might end up with a beautiful house, but it's built on a shaky foundation. Critical thinking, on the other hand, is like inspecting the foundation for cracks. It's about being willing to challenge your own assumptions and to rebuild your beliefs on a more solid foundation of evidence and reason. Have you ever heard someone say, correlation equals causation? It's a common phrase, but it's also a dangerous one. Just because two things happen together doesn't mean that one caused the other. Confusing correlation with causation can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings and bad decisions. Let's explore this together. Correlation simply means that two things are related or tend to occur together. For example, ice cream sales and drowning incidents tend to increase during the summer months. Does that mean that eating ice cream causes drowning? Probably not. There's likely a third factor at play: warmer weather. People are more likely to eat ice cream and go swimming when it's hot outside. So, while there's a correlation between ice cream and drowning, there's no direct causation. We see examples of this confusion all the time in everyday life. For instance, some people believe that more police officers lead to more crime. They might point to statistics showing that cities with larger police forces also have higher crime rates. But does that mean that the police are causing the crime? Not necessarily. It's more likely that cities with higher crime rates need more police officers. The crime is causing the increase in police presence, not the other way around. Think about the stereotype that wearing glasses makes people smarter. It's a funny idea, but it's clearly a case of correlation, not causation. Wearing glasses doesn't magically boost your IQ. It just means that you need glasses to see clearly. The need for glasses is correlated with, for example, reading a lot of books. Sometimes, however, the correlation is the clue to finding the causation. Take the story of Typhoid Mary. For instance, Mary Mallon was a cook in the early 20th century who unknowingly spread typhoid fever to dozens of people. Health officials noticed a correlation between Mary's presence and outbreaks of the disease. At first, they didn't know why, but through careful investigation and testing, they eventually discovered that Mary was a carrier of the disease, even though she herself showed no symptoms. This discovery, though controversial at the time, led to a better understanding of how diseases can spread and how to prevent them. So, how can we avoid confusing correlation with causation? The key is to be skeptical and to ask questions. Don't just accept things at face value. Look for other possible explanations and consider the evidence carefully. Remember, correlation is just the starting point. That's a great question. We often rely on experts to guide us, to provide us with accurate information and informed opinions. Doctors, scientists, historians, these are people who have dedicated their lives to understanding complex subjects. But what happens when those experts are wrong? What if they're biased, misinformed, or simply mistaken? The appeal to authority fallacy is assuming that something is true simply because an authority figure said so. It's tempting to blindly trust experts, especially when the subject matter is complex or confusing. But even the most knowledgeable people can be wrong. The possibilities are endless. Think about Albert Einstein. He's often portrayed as the ultimate genius, the pinnacle of human intellect. And while Einstein was undoubtedly a brilliant physicist, he wasn't infallible. He had his limitations in areas of expertise. He even struggled with certain aspects of quantum mechanics, famously calling it spooky action at a distance. Just because Einstein believed something didn't automatically make it true. Consider the history of medicine. For many years, doctors actually promoted smoking, claiming that it had health benefits. They were considered the experts, the authorities on health, and people trusted their opinions. But we now know that smoking is incredibly harmful. This is a stark reminder that even the most respected experts can be wrong, especially when faced with new evidence or evolving understanding. So, how do we navigate this complex landscape of expertise and misinformation? Here's a 3-step technique rooted in scientific literature, historical records, academic research, technological advancements, cultural studies, to help you discern truth from misinformation. First, identify the claim. What is the expert saying? Second, evaluate the expert's credentials. What are their qualifications? What is their area of expertise? Are they truly an expert on the specific topic they're discussing? Third, look for supporting evidence from other sources. Does the expert's claim align with the evidence from other studies, experiments, or historical records? Even with the best intentions, biases can creep into scientific advancements. This emphasizes the need for independent verification for other scientists to replicate the results and confirm the findings. It's about keeping the scientific process honest and objective, even when faced with pressure or conflicting interests. What if we tried this? Remember, critical thinking is about questioning everything, even the opinions of experts. It's not about being disrespectful or dismissive. It's about being intellectually honest and seeking the truth wherever it may lead. The ethics of scientific advancements is a complex issue, but it's one that we must grapple with if we want to build a better future in today's world. We're bombarded with information from all sides: news headlines, social media posts, viral videos. It's a constant stream of data vying for our attention. And unfortunately, not all of that information is accurate. Fake news and misinformation are rampant, and they can have a real impact on our understanding of the world. The thrill of sharing something new can be intoxicating. When we stumble upon a sensational headline or a shocking claim, our brains release dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This can override our critical evaluation, making us more likely to share the information without verifying its accuracy. We want to be the first to break the news, to be seen as knowledgeable and in the know. But in our rush to share, we often forget to ask, is this actually true? Fake news often employs specific tactics to manipulate our emotions and bypass our critical thinking skills. Emotional language, such as inflammatory headlines and exaggerated claims, is a common tool. These tactics are designed to trigger our fears, anxieties, and outrage, making us more likely to accept the information without questioning it. Another red flag is a lack of credible sources. Fake news articles often fail to cite reliable sources or provide evidence to support their claims. Biased reporting is also a common tactic, where the information is presented in a way that favors a particular viewpoint or agenda. Seeking knowledge from unreliable sources is like trying to fill a leaky bucket. You might pour in a lot of information, but it will quickly drain away, leaving you feeling empty and confused. Prioritizing sensational headlines over reliable sources is a fatal mistake for anyone seeking to understand the world. It's like choosing to eat junk food instead of nutritious meals. It might taste good in the moment, but it will ultimately leave you feeling worse. Explore with wounded intellectual confidence. The feeling of being manipulated by fake news can be deeply unsettling. It can erode our trust in institutions, in the media, and even in each other. Regaining that trust requires a commitment to critical evaluation, to fact-checking, and to seeking out reliable sources of information. The possibilities are endless. We need to cultivate a healthy skepticism, to question everything we read and hear, and to rely on credible sources of information. By developing these skills, we can protect ourselves from the lies and misinformation that are so prevalent in today's world. The possibilities are endless, so we've explored several key critical thinking skills. From recognizing mental shortcuts to identifying fake news, we've seen how our brains can sometimes trick us, leading us to make flawed judgments and believe false information. But we've also learned how to fight back, how to regain control of our thoughts, and how to become more informed and discerning citizens. Remember, critical thinking isn't just a set of skills, it's a mindset. It's about being curious, open-minded, and intellectually honest. It's about questioning everything, even your own beliefs. And it's about being willing to change your mind when faced with new evidence. It's a muscle that gets stronger with practice. The more you exercise it, the better you'll become at analyzing information, identifying biases, and forming your own reasoned judgments. Start applying these skills in your daily life. Question the headlines you see online. Analyze the arguments you hear in conversations. Evaluate the evidence presented in advertisements. Don't just passively accept information, actively engage with it. The possibilities are endless. Critical thinking is a lifelong adventure, a journey of intellectual discovery and personal growth. It's about unlocking your inner genius, about becoming the smartest, most informed version of yourself. In the end, the world needs critical thinkers, people who can see through the noise, identify the truth, and make informed decisions. What if we tried this? Now, I want to hear from you. Share examples of how you've used critical thinking in your daily lives in the comments below. What challenges have you faced? What successes have you achieved? Let's learn from each other and continue this journey together. What will you discover?